These are the 5 best new co-op and multiplayer games releasing in June. If your hands and back ache from all that wood chopping and stone lifting in your average survival game, why not use some magic, sit back and relax? Well, it's not exactly that easy, but pretty close. Because in Witchspire, you play as novice witches and wizards, who no longer need to rely on peasant tools to build their magical coven from nature's resources. Found a tree? Magically chop it down. Found an entire forest? Magically chop all of it down. Only found an empty meadow? Just magically conjure your own forest first and then chop that down too. But this game is obviously much more than just a forester simulator. But unlike many survival games lately, this one seems a lot less interested in making you suffer from painful repetition, starvation and dehydration every 4 minutes. Instead, you explore a land filled to the brim with secrets and tameable familiars that not only fight for you, but can also help you maintain parts of your sanctuary or simply hang around looking cute. Building structures uses astral projection that lets you freely move around while placing parts of your base. And the whole survival aspect seems more like a magical sandbox adventure than hardcore punishment simulator. The co-op itself is fully online and supports drop-in and drop-out multiplayer for up to 4 players. We played the demo together a while back, and although we could build everything together, quests didn't complete for everyone. So we do hope that progression has been streamlined since. Other than that, you can explore the world together, fight alongside each other, and step by step free the world from corrupted creatures that somehow took over that cozy landscape. There is some darker lore around the corruption spreading through the world, but it seems much more relaxed than something like Valheim or Rust. The game launches into Steam Early Access on June 10th, and the developers also already confirmed that this is going to stay in Early Access for about a year, with community feedback shaping future updates and additional content. So if you enjoy survival crafting games, but maybe want something a little less stressful and a bit more magical for a change, Witchspire might be worth keeping an eye on.
If you grew up with the classic top-down Zelda games and spent half of your childhood breaking pots for rupees, we know you have a heart and a half for our next game in this roundup. The Adventures of Elliot is an upcoming action RPG from the Octopath Traveler and Bravely Default team. It combines that old-school adventure game feeling with some modern twists and charming visuals. As the name might suggest, you play as Elliot, an adventurer exploring a dangerous continent outside humanity's last remaining safe kingdom. And naturally, things escalate pretty quickly once you investigate the wrong ruin. And before long, you end up stepping through the doorway of time, traveling across 4 completely different eras over the span of an entire millennium, trying to figure out what exactly happened to this world. Pretty wild for an average Tuesday afternoon, if you ask us. Now, normally this would already sound like a pretty solid single-player RPG. But what makes it even more interesting for us is the local co-op mode. A second player can jump in at any time and take control of Faye, Elliot's fairy companion. And thankfully, this is not one of those situations where player 2 gets stuck controlling a useless floating flashlight that's constantly screaming,
"Hey, Elliot, listen!"
Faye actually plays a major role in combat and exploration. She can attack enemies with magic, help solve puzzles, grab items from difficult spots, and even assist Elliot with movement and teleport mechanics. So the co-op feels much closer to 2 players actively working together rather than 1 player dragging along on a leash. There is already a prologue demo available with around 90 minutes of gameplay, and your save even carries over to the full release. So if you are curious whether this hits that nostalgic spot, nothing is going to stop you. Just keep in mind that this is local co-op only, preferably using 2 controllers. No online multiplayer or matchmaking. So if you want to experience this together, someone still has to come over to your couch, like it's 2006 again. Oh, how we wish it was.
This month, stressful survivor crafting games are apparently off the menu. And if Witchspire's magical coven life doesn't quite spark your interest, don't worry. We've also got one with a lot less wizardry and a lot more renewable energy. Again, this is much less about punching trees and desperately surviving on berries, and much more about building a little paradise in the sky together with your friends. It really feels like developers are starting to realize that not everyone wants their games to feel like a second job after work. Or maybe stressful times just create more relaxing games. Either way, we're absolutely here for it. Solarpunk takes place in a world made up of floating islands where pretty much everything runs on renewable energy. So instead of giant diesel generators, you build solar panels and wind turbines to power your home and all your gadgets. You can play solo or with up to 3 friends in online co-op, and the game seems very focused around just peacefully working together. Everyone has their own inventory, so you can split up tasks around farming, gathering resources or building, while gradually automating parts of your base with little drones that help with watering crops or collecting materials. And unlike many survival games, this one currently has no major combat focus at all. Even the animals are more like companions than threats. Apparently, pigs can help you dig up truffles if you treat them well, which simultaneously sounds cute, helpful, and delicious. Exploration also looks surprisingly fun here, because every player can eventually build and pilot their own little airship. So instead of walking everywhere, you and your friends can just fly off to distant islands together, looking for new resources, the perfect building spot, and wherever the heck Greg managed to crash this time. From what they showed in the demo, the building system also seems pretty flexible, with plenty of options for cozy houses, decorations, and furniture. Unfortunately, multiplayer was still locked when we tried the demo ourselves, but it will be available with the full release in June. One thing to keep in mind though, crossplay is currently not planned at launch, so keep that in mind when choosing a platform.
If you loved the original Hell Let Loose but always hoped for more trees and humidity, well, your wish came true. Just don't complain about the mosquitoes now. Hell Let Loose Vietnam is a standalone follow-up that takes you to... These game titles kind of ruin the surprise, if you ask me. But yeah, instead of the classic World War II setting, you are now fighting in the Vietnam War, either on the side of the US Armed Forces or the North Vietnamese armies. Instead of wide open fields and distant tank battles, a lot of the fighting here happens deep inside dense jungle environments, which changes the feel of the combat completely. Like the original, this is fully focused around massive 50 vs 50 multiplayer battles, without any story campaign or PvE mode against bots. Teamwork is still absolutely at the center of it all here, with up to 17 different combat roles depending on which side you fight for. So if building tunnels and setting up ambushes sounds like your thing, the NVA might be your faction of choice, while helicopters are exclusive to the US forces. We just hope Greg stays away from those, because the last thing we need is a supply drop accidentally turning into friendly fire. The game will launch with 6 different maps inspired by real locations and battles, alongside modes like the classic warfare and offensive, where teams either fight over sector control or one side defends while the other tries to break through their defenses. There are also new patrol boats for river combat, new and improved movement mechanics like swimming, climbing and dragging wounded teammates to safety. And unlike the original Hell Let Loose, Vietnam is getting full crossplay right at launch, so you can all jump into the same jungle nightmare together from day one.
STARSEEKER Astroneer expeditions might just look like Astroneer 2, but actually goes in a completely different direction gameplay-wise. Instead of one giant sandbox where you slowly build up your little bases on different planets, Expeditions is fully focused on co-op missions with your crew. You and up to 3 friends operate not from your own planet, but from aboard the ISS STARSEEKER, a persistent space station that acts as your multiplayer hub between missions. From there, you gear up, accept expeditions, upgrade equipment, and then deploy onto different planets, each filled with different resources, hazards, and life forms. In the trailers, we have so far seen dense jungles, barren caves, and giant oceans. But unlike the original Astroneer, these missions are timed. You only have a limited oxygen supply and a limited amount of time before you need to extract from any mission. And yes, failing to make it back in time apparently means losing part of your progress. So naturally, you will terraform yourself into a bad spot right before the timer runs out. I mean, this still is an Astroneer game. In co-op, you share resources, you can revive each other, and coordinate objectives. Although your missions are squad-based, you will meet other players too, who are also out on their own little missions. which is pretty cool, until one of them terraforms your exit route, I guess. There are also hostile creatures now. And no, not the other players. That said, the game still keeps a lot of Astroneer's charming atmosphere, which is probably one of the things that we love the most about this franchise. We had joined the last playtest this spring and liked some aspects of it, especially the hub. But we also feel like we need to emphasize that this will be an early access launch. So if you've played Astroneer before, or if you have watched our review of that game, you know that bugs and glitches will probably also join you on your space journey. The developers have already released a roadmap covering new planets and expanding story arcs over roughly the next year. This time, there seems to be no microtransactions anymore, which is awesome, as that's something we really disliked about the first game. One really nice addition is also the full cross-platform multiplayer and cross-progression support right from the start, and that it will be on Xbox Game Pass from day one. But that's all for this month. We wish you a ton of fun in co-op with your favorite people, and we'll see you again in the next one.